While we're out on the scene there, while this is all going on, I get a phone call from um, a Chicago police detective that basically says, "Hey, do you guys have a homicide or a shooting that you guys are working right now?" And I said, "Yeah, we are." He goes, and he describes every single possible detail that you would only know if you were there. And he says, "Hey, I got a guy on the phone. He says that he shot and killed a girl. He shot her 11 times. And it's like, count the bullet casing. There's 11 bullet casings there." It's like, yeah, I think you're talking to somebody that we need to talk to.
Your affiliation with law enforcement began more than 30 years ago, in October of 1991, as an auxiliary police officer with the Village of Rosemont. You served as an auxiliary with the Rosemont Public Safety Department until December of 1997. Additionally, you served as a telecommunicator with the Highland Park Police Department from June of 1996 until December of 1997. In January of 1998, you began your law enforcement career with the Oakbrook, Illinois Police Department. You were appointed Assistant Shift Commander, or OIC, in 2002 and served in that capacity until your assignment to investigations as a detective in 2008. You returned to patrol in 2017, where you resumed your responsibilities as an Assistant Shift Commander. You were promoted to Sergeant in 2023 and were assigned to supervise one of two 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. patrol teams. Your collateral duty assignments throughout your career included assignment to the statewide Ruse burglary task force, assignment to the NIPUS Mobile Field Force, the state's largest multi-jurisdictional crowd control team. You were a DUI instructor and taught officers from agencies across northern Illinois. You were an evidence tech and a field training officer. Additionally, you were president of the Oakbrook Police Pension Fund and a board member with the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists. You retired from the Oakbrook Police Department on January 10th of 2025. Vel, thank you for agreeing to share your story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Yeah, I grew up on the far northwest side of Chicago, the far northwest side of Chicago, a neighborhood called Edison Park. Edison Park is a middle-class neighborhood that's predominantly has a lot of city workers in it, and firemen and policemen and teachers, and just a good old-fashioned Chicago neighborhood.
Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Lane Tech High School in Chicago.
And what'd you do after high school?
After high school, it was kind of a twofold thing. I started going to Oakton Community College in Des Plaines, took classes in criminal justice, and in that time frame, I got hired as an auxiliary police officer in the Village of Rosemont.
So what got you interested in law enforcement?
Growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, all my friends that I grew up with, a lot of their dads were police officers, and it kind of drew me to that type of life, and very interested in that type of work. So, and just like growing up in that neighborhood, you played chips on your bicycles, and so yeah, that's just kind of what we started doing.
So did you purposely choose the Oakbrook Police Department, because that's ultimately where you ended up and did your career? Did you purposely choose it, or were you just testing everywhere and they were the first ones to call you?
Kind of both, actually. So I was testing around just like you did back in that day, in those late 90s, mid 90s. You test for a department, and you show up and they tell you they have one opening in the next 2 years, and there's 400 people standing there in line. I had an assignment when I was working in Rosemont as in a building, and we'd get to read the newspaper there a lot. And I would look in the job section, and I would look at newspaper, the classifieds for police department jobs. And the week before that, I read an article about Oakbrook, and that there was all these issues, and there was police officers on the take, and all this type of stuff. And I said, boy, they're going to clean house there. Maybe that might be my opportunity to get in. Maybe they'll have like 10 openings. And I said, I'll have to keep my eye on that. And the following week, just like clockwork, there's an ad in the Chicago Tribune saying that the Oakbrook Police Department's testing. And I came and got the application, and I exactly remember when I walked in the doors and how it was. And I had application number 7. I still have a copy of it. And I was like the 7th person that day. I came in after midnight, after my 4 to 12 shift, picked up my application and filled it out and brought it back like a couple days later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did you participate in the testing process? Ultimately, you get hired by Oakbrook. Where do you go to the academy?
We ended up going to the College of DuPage, which was a shock for me, like where I grew up at. I mean, I didn't get too far south of North Avenue, and this was going to be south of North Avenue for me to come to the police academy. So it was like a whole different like country for me to come out this way to Glen Ellen. So, and even Oakbrook for that matter too. So
talk a little bit about that academy. Was it a residential, a commuter academy, and do you have any memories from your time there?
Yeah, it was a commuter college, a commuter academy. It was at a community college. It was actually still very early in the infancy of the academy there. We actually were in like mobile buildings, like sheds almost that we were in. And so we were just, kind of like the stepchildren there. And then really, really cool to see where that academy has come to today. As for, good memories there. I mean, some of the guys I kept in contact over the years, and we stayed really close. And now as I look back and I started seeing these guys all retire, and I said, I got to get out of here too, because everybody that I started the academy with is getting out of here and getting retired. So I wanted to do that. So
you graduate the academy, mm-hmm. and you come to the Oakbrook Police Department. And did you have any time off before you left the academy? Do you remember? Did you get a week off, a day off? And what was that first day like reporting?
Yeah, no, I remember it like almost like it was yesterday. We graduated on a Friday, had Saturday off, started on Sunday. I could probably tell you everybody that was in the room that the day that I walked in there, my FTO, you yourself was my first FTO, and Sergeant Stadweiser was my one of my sergeants. We had another sergeant that he was there, and he left shortly after that, and everybody else. It was like a very welcoming type of feel. Definitely not what I was expecting it to be. When I came from Highland Park, there was guys there that they didn't talk to you until you had a year on the job. So it was nice. It was really cool.
So talk about your field training program a little bit. How long was it? How many FTOs did you have? And were there any memorable experiences as a part of that?
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few memorable experiences. I had 3 FTOs. Like I said, you were one of them. I had another FTO that became a very good friend of me also. And we worked together investigations. That was Mark King. And then I had another FTO, Roy Lancourt. And each one of you guys were different. Every one of, brought a different type of learning to it and a challenge to it. And I feel over those years, I felt like I took a little bit of everybody's style and then made it my own, and then tried to, pass it on to that next generation when I became an FTO. Took some really good training along the way with that too. So
memorable experiences?
Well, one of them early on was with Mark King. We had I don't know. Mark tells the story as if I probably shouldn't have been driving the car yet at that time, and a chase was coming out of the east, from over in Cook County, and I heard it, and just because of my radio ear from being a dispatcher, I knew what was going on, And I heard it. I said, "Hey, this car's coming right down the street. Matter of fact, here comes its headlights." And he was, "All right, go." And so I flip on the lights and start chasing him. And we come around the corner. Mark says I put the car on two wheels, and one of the sergeants was just happened to be minding his own business, going the other direction, and all he saw was me coming around the corner, going sideways in this Chevy Caprice, and then taking off. And later on, Mark King gets whistled in and says, "Hey, was the new guy driving that car?" Because what was he doing? So it was a good story like that. Another one of the stories I remember was with you, I guess. We were at a traffic stop, and probably one of my earlier on first traffic stops, and just excited to put a stop on somebody, and I swore I put the car in park, but I guess I didn't, and we just looked at each other. Why are we moving? And it's like, "Hey, put the car in park. Put the car in park." So we, yeah. So there's those some of the earlier moments where you kind of forget, but they were funny, So
So kind of give me that overview of your law enforcement career, that 30,000 foot perspective of, from you get out of field training to the time you retire, just kind of some of the responsibilities and assignments that you had.
Yeah. So, I started in, in patrol, and, as in patrol, you start moving around and trying to see where you're going to go with the next thing, and what you like, who your mentors are, what they did, how they evolved as police officers. And I would, I kind of wanted to become, an opening. And actually, let's just back up just a second. There's an opening for the K9 position came open, and I wanted to do that. I mean, I was a ball of fire at the time, making a lot of traffic stops, making a lot of arrests, and I really wanted that position in that, and I got passed over for it. But again, I kind of got that. I don't want to call it a consolation prize, but it was kind of like a, "Hey, you're not doing nothing. You're doing nothing wrong. Maybe just not your time." And became an FTO. I mean, it was like it's almost like they knew that maybe that dog job not for you. The FTO would be where to go. And then also at that time too, it was like kind of a, had that conversation with you. It was like, "Hey, get your head out of your ass, quit, worrying about that, and start focusing on something different." And it's like, what is nobody else doing at this police department? What's going to get you noticed? What can make you do something that nobody else is, and what you're going to be good at? And it was DUIs, and then DUIs just became my thing, and led the department. It was probably in the top 5 in the county writing DUIs and getting awards from MAD and AIM, and then it turned into a teaching position and moving along. And then after that, kind of just grew. I don't want to say grew out of it. It just, it was time to move on and do something different. And the position opened up in investigations, and put in for it. And I got it. And that was probably one of the best moments for me in the police department. I thought by far the best job on the police department. So I stayed in there for, it was a 5-year assignment, got to stay there for 8 years, and had some extra duties there like NIPUS. And then I also got on the Ruse burglary task force, got really involved with that. And all of a sudden, it was like, "Hey, it's time to come back out." And that I got it. I understood it, but it sucked, you know what I mean? Because you think you didn't do anything wrong. But it's like, hey, we're not a big police department, and, other people have to get in there and experience it and do something, And so, come on out, and then, maybe mentor some of the younger guys, and, come back to, be training some of the new guys and stuff like that. And so that's where it kind of came to. But while I was in detectives that time too. I passed up on a couple sergeant's exams that I was just happy where I was at. I didn't want to do anything else. I enjoyed it very much. And so I think that's where I would say that part of me would say, I wish I would have maybe tested more in those positions for sergeant, maybe came out of investigations as a sergeant.
So you had some very important specialties that unlike typical specialties took you out of the agency.
Mm-hmm.
You got to interact with officers from other departments. You got to be involved in some potentially critical, if not critical, incidents when we're talking about mobile field force, and then obviously your time with the Ruse burglary task force. But looking at your time as a patrol officer and on the street, and specifically traffic stops, are there any traffic stops that stand out in your mind? Whether it's just that standard traffic stop, whether it was funny or maybe a little bit tense, or a DUI arrest, anything that particularly stands out?
There's always, there's a couple that do. One of them, I remember, it was just a, early on in my career, we pull a car over and walk up to the car. You see the person was intoxicated or appeared to be intoxicated. So we asked them to step out of the car, and then the passenger inside the car was an attorney, and it just became like this merry-go-round of, getting out of the car. The wife was the guy's wife, and she was getting back in and going out of the car. We're trying to get him to do tests, and it was just, it was a circus, really. And then got so frustrated. I remember, didn't know what else to do. It's like, hey, can I get a supervisor out here? So the supervisor comes out and was kind of looking at me like, really, you're calling me out for this? And I said, yeah. She's a pain in the ass. She won't stay in the car. All right, young one, go do your thing. And all of a sudden I turn around and there you are. It was you actually. So, and you're like losing it with her the same way I was. It's just like, yeah, it was that easy. Huh, Jason? Why you can't keep her in the car either, can you? So that was just one of those things that, you look back at it and you just laugh your ass off about it. It was just, you think that showing up at something, you're going to fix it, and it made it worse. So,
well, let me ask you this. Did something like that ever happen again, and how was it handled?
Oh, much different. There was just they go out of the car and would just like slam the car, back and put your knee on that door, and there was no way of them opening that car up. We learned. And that was the way it was. I mean, we'd always learn from those mistakes, and, yeah, it was, you see something happen and be like, oh, it ain't going to happen again. And it just, it doesn't police work doesn't necessarily repeat itself. I think it just, a lot of times it rhymes, it's happened, quite a few times where you just kind of, you've heard it, you've seen it somewhere else. Somebody's told you about it and you're like, I heard about this before. And then you just kind of, you learn from other people's mistakes. And also a lot of times you learn from your own. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Any other traffic stops? I kind of interrupted you there.
Yeah, no. Right now I can't think of anything else, but that one just, kind of stands out. And, actually one more. I remember it was part of it. Another like DUI stop. It was right on Route 83, right in the middle of, right Route 83 and 22nd Street. It wasn't necessarily my traffic stop. But the driver of the vehicle, was stopped. The lights came on behind it. The guy gets out of the car and walks around the back of the car as the passenger slides over into the driver's seat, and then the driver goes and sits in the passenger seat. And we just had fun with that one too. I had one time also another one where I was training a new guy, and we stopped the car again for suspected DUI, and walk up to the car, and there's nobody in the car. The guy had hopped into the back seat and hid under a bunch of blankets and stuff like that. So when we got him out of the car, I found out that I had arrested him literally the week before for DUI. So, so yeah, those things happen. You just kind of laugh at them. So it was good. It always, you come back and there's a story to tell at the end of the day. So.
Talk a little bit about the mobile field force. I don't know that people necessarily understand what that is, and how a multi-jurisdictional team like that works and how big it was.
Yeah, no, it's It's a big team. At the time, I think we had somewhere between 102 and 110 agencies involved in it. Some sent multiple officers, some just sent one officer. It was broken down into a big team. It was a mobile field force team. Basically, you would use it for crowd control and riots. And it originally started when the World Cup came to the United States back in, I think it was like 94 or 96. So way before the time that I came on. But at the time, the thought process behind this night was going to be because they had these soccer riots that would run out, so that they created this team and put it together, and then just they would start using it for other events like Y2K. That was another big one. And after Y2K, probably the next bigger ones would have been like NATO came to Chicago. We helped with that. Then there was President Obama's election. Fears of riots and unrest. So we kind of covered those. Covered just I'm trying to think what else they covered, but there some other Nazi type groups that would come out and protest and so keep the people apart from each other, not necessarily good and bad. It's whatever side you're on, but to kind of keep the peace. So those are the things that we would do. The team was broken up in you'd have your line guys, and then you'd have your weapons guys. The weapons guys would have lethal, less lethal, gas, and then you'd have an arrest team, and we had a mounted unit that would also help clear the way, and then canines as well. So it was a big group coming at you that had one main focus. And I was on that line for a long time, and then after that, there were some openings within it. So logistically, on the leadership side, I took some positions in that and helped organize some of the checking in processes and drone processes and things like that we did to make it a better team and more technologically savvy. So
the Gypsy Ruse Task Force, what does that look like? Who's on that task force, and what are the responsibilities?
Yeah, so as we like to call them, mobile ethnic minorities. So they're organizations, a criminal organization of people that would do different types of things, and this crimes against usually elderly, and a lot of police departments would get these cases and not know what was going on, and we were fortunate enough, the state police headed this organization up, and we had a couple Chicago police officers, officers from the Cook County area and Lake County area, and then the state police, and it kind of gave us that opportunity to become a task force, get sworn in, and then be able to handle these crimes and help other towns solve them across the board. So some of the cases that we did were, somebody comes up to your door, knocks on the door, and says, "Hey, we're here we bought the house next door to you, and we got some trees on the property line. We want to show you where those trees are." And a lot of times they're always the elderly victim, and the elderly person would go outside, and then they would. And while somebody's out there, while they're talking to them about that tree line, somebody's inside and just taking every heirloom out of the place. So those were the type of crimes that we would do. We were able to, follow some of these people. Sometimes even on social media, they would post things not knowing that their accounts were private or public. So we were able to get that. And they would tell on each other too. So then we would, focus on those people. And then you have your sweetheart swindle crimes, where you would have the ladies of these organizations meet up and go to malls and talk to an older gentleman, maybe that he just lost his wife, and befriend him, then give them some type of a sad story, and he'd give them money, and then as time would go on, they would just drain his bank account. I mean, there was times that we actually helped with people that they got into his bank account and they became the beneficiary of $1 million life insurance policies. These guys were 80, 90 years old. They were going to die. And who got the money? And the money was just getting drained from the bank account. So yeah, we were able to do a lot of good things with that, and a great highlight of my career, because I would never have been able to do that without those people. So, and I'm very fortunate that the department let me participate in that. That was really good.
So you've been in patrol, you're NIPUS Mobile Field Force, you're part of this Ruse burglary task force, and you ultimately become a sergeant out on the street in investigations, if I didn't say that as well. So throughout all of that, are there, regardless of the assignment, is there a particular incident or incidents that stand out in your mind associated with any one of those responsibilities?
Yeah. So, I mean, while I was in investigations, I was very fortunate enough to be on the Fiat Major Crimes Task Force too. So I was also able to, go to other towns and then help them investigate their homicides or violent crimes. But one of the ones that I do remember, it kind of stands out with me. We had one of our own homicides, and I was able to, work on that case. And that case was basically a guy meets this girl online, comes down, hangs out with her in Berwyn, and he believes that she is his girlfriend. She just, they're just, buddies from online. They played a game World of Warcraft, and finally he just goes back home, and that was it. And while he's back at home, he finds out that the Yitka, the victim, starts dating her boyfriend again, and that really upsets him. And while he's up in Canada, he can't work. It consumes him. So he comes down to Washington State, buys a gun online. The guy sells him the gun. Through interviews, we find out the guy says, I didn't give him the bullets, though. He just looked a little weird, so I didn't want to give him any bullets. So the guy starts driving east, and then he stops, gets off at just at a random exit, and there's a homeless guy holding a sign, we'll work for money. And they had a conversation. He goes, hey, can you buy me some bullets? I'll give you the change. Buys the bullets, and he buys these bullets, and he drives all the way to Chicago, basically stalks her down with a GPS device that he put on the bottom of her car, and all these different places where he wants to jump out and shoot her. Just too many people there. And then she volunteers at a local organization in our town in Oakbrook, and quiet parking lot. He sets up on her, waits for her. She comes out of the building and shoots and kills her dead there. While we're out on the scene there, while this is all going on, I get a phone call from a Chicago police detective that basically says, hey, do you guys have a homicide or a shooting that you guys are working right now? And I said, yeah, we are. He goes, and he describes every single possible detail that you would only know if you were there. And he says, hey, I got a guy on the phone. He says that he shot and killed the girl. He shot her 11 times. And it's like, count the bullet casing. There's 11 bullet casings there. It's like, yeah, I think you're talking to somebody that we need to talk to. He says, yeah, there should be an extra magazine also too. He says, while he was shooting her, the magazine fell out of the gun, and he put another one in there. Well, there's a magazine on the ground. He's also said that she threw a cup of coffee at him. There's a cup of coffee. And so he says, yeah, we're going to keep him on the phone while you can. Get somebody out here. Maybe we could talk him into turning himself in or whatever. So, and at the time, Mark King and I, raced down to Chicago, And we go down to Belmont and Western there, and one of the area headquarters for where the detectives are at. Walk in, and they're on the phone with the guy named Dimitri, and start talking to Dimitri, and Dimitri gives up everything on the phone, basically kind of talking to us. And while he's doing this, his car gets called in as a suspicious auto. And the suspicious auto brings a police officer out there. And the police officer starts talking to him. And he's like, hey, I'm on the phone with this police officer. I'm trying to confess to a murder or something like this. He's, what are you saying? And he gets him out of the car. Now we can hear all this, but this officer has no idea that we're talking to anybody. So as he gets him out of the car, I guess he cuffs him up, and he comes back in the car, and he could hear him shuffling around. And I start yelling into the phone, and he's like, yeah, hello, who is this? And I tell him what's up, and he's like, you got to be kidding me. So, and we end up catching this guy, 4 or 5 hours later after killing somebody, just based on, luck and some good police work. So that's one of them. So, yeah.
Any other high profile investigations that you were involved in? Maybe they drew a lot of attention from the community or put a lot of pressure on the administration.
I don't know about pressure on the administration. Oh yeah. We had a, a couple weeks later, right? I mean, the life of a suburban cop, it's suburban detective, right? I get a case on my desk, and hey, you got to look into this right away. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I just looked at it, just said, criminal damage of property. I'm like, well, what could possibly be that, that somebody needs to get that involved in on this, right? So I put it off to the side, went and grabbed something to drink, come back. Hey, did you look at that case yet? I was like, it's a criminal damage of property. What could it possibly be? So you open it up and you start looking into it. Well, it's like a $700,000 criminal damage of property. It was a guy or kids that ended up throwing 3 dozen eggs at cars that were parked at a party. So just cars are just caked in eggs and stuff like that, and every car more expensive than next that they threw. And so my partner and I, Katie, we kind of chuckled about it. We're gonna be heroes. You know what I mean, over this one. So if we can solve this one, so what ends up happening is we just you back, making it like every case, every good detective should, you start way up here, and then it's easy to go back down. But if you start here and then try to hit the gas, you're not going to be able to get all that momentum back. So we started looking at it like it was the crime of the century. And so we did that, and, we started, knocking on doors and, going to these grocery stores. Hey, did you sell, 3 dozen eggs on a Friday? And, people are like, police are looking into who's selling these eggs. And it's just like, yeah, only if you knew, you know what I mean? It's solely if you knew. And we tracked the kids down, and they owned up to it, and they ended up coming up with some restitution for the cars getting cleaned and stuff like that. And, you would have thought that, we found out who killed Hoffa at that time with the accolades that you got for it. You know what I mean? It was crazy. So that was one of those cases, right? Solve a homicide? No, nothing. But the egging, you got it. You're good. You're good to go.
So was there ever a time in patrol where maybe you were dispatched to an incident, or you came across an incident and something just didn't seem right about it, where you're like, this doesn't make sense?
Yeah. When I just come out of investigations, so the way I looked at things was a little more different, like always trying to start here and then work your way down. And I was training a new guy. It was in February, and it was like 65 degrees outside. It was just a gorgeous day outside, which was like totally what I remember from this day, so much. And we're just driving along, and a car just stopped on the side of the street, not off the road far enough, but it just didn't look right, So I'm with my new guy, and I'm saying, go check it out and stuff like that, and kind of breaking down to him, hey, what are we going to do with this car now? How do we do this? You run the plate, it comes back to a guy in town, a family in town. All right, what should we do? You're kind of testing the new guy. It's like, I already know what we're going to do. I mean, we'll call the home, the owner, the registered owner, and see where the guy's at, and basically we're, it's a done deal. We'll tow it off the road. The car's at the, the local tow shop. So, but something just didn't look right. Something didn't feel right. Just the way it was just parked there and just left. So we got a hold of the register owner's wife, and then she went in and starts telling us that her husband, when he left that day, he wasn't right. Something wasn't right. He was had some bad business dealings going on. He was depressed, and so we kind of stuck with it, kind of kept on pushing it, trying to find him, pinging the phone, and two and a half, 3 hours later, what I mean, we're still screwing around with this, motorist assist. Basically, I think most cops would have probably just called a tow, hit a parking ticket on it, and took it away. But just something didn't look right to us. So, and with the new guy, I kind of, just, giving him scenarios and stuff like that. So as we're, the wife comes out to the scene, now she's scared too, because her husband's not answering the phone. She gets him on the phone, and we look, he's calling her on FaceTime. And I could see, I recognize the area where this person's at. So I call on the radio, say, hey, somebody go over there. The guy's looks like he's laying on the ground. It looks like he might need help. We can't, know what he's saying or what he's talking about. So so we get over there. One of the sergeants gets over there and winds up there. There's just like blood all over the place. The guy had taken like a paring knife and cut himself from, basically from his ear here on one side all the way to the other side, and it was all open up, and he was just bleeding. The thing that he didn't hit those carotid arteries there, otherwise he probably would have bled out, and just wide open, and something that we don't see, and so we called an ambulance and got him, and he's fine, he's alive. Basically saved his life. Well, that was a unique case.
And so I think in law enforcement, I think that, and this isn't something we talked about, but I think in law enforcement, there's a lack of understanding by those on the outside looking in that there are opportunities to maybe have a good time and pull pranks on each other and to kind of make the job a little bit more bearable,
Sure.
if you stop and look at things that we see, like what you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any maybe pranks or jokes that you were involved in within the police department that you're willing to share, because you are retired at this point?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, some of these stories, you got to wait until you're retired to tell them again. Right. So yeah, I mean, we, some of them, totally harmless, good fun, you poke fun at people, and people got to remember, what, if you're not a butt of a joke at a police department, everybody hates you. So, I mean, let's be realistic about it, because if they can mess with you, then that they like you, and you're not going to take it to heart, right? And believe me, I was part of a lot of those jokes on both ends, right? I took some of them. One of the ones I hate worms, and somebody put a worm on my mic in my car. It just made me laugh. I mean, I heard stories of one of the stories I remember hearing was one of the officers cut a tail off of a deer and chased one of the other officers around the car and around the street. Putting Vaseline on the door handles of guys' cars as they come up to the car. Loading up a locker with pennies across the top when you opened up and all the pennies hit you on the head. We had a tradition for a while there. We would, as guys would get off of probation, we would call them over to like a suspicious type of an incident and have them start looking at something. And we would all be on top of the garage, and we'd hit them with water balloons, things like that. I mean, it's a good time. You gotta take the best with the bad. I think, what one of my buddies told me a long time ago is, what, if we're not laughing, we're crying. And I'd much rather be laughing at work, and that's what I like that. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So is there anybody, because you had experiences with 3 different agencies. You were on a multi-jurisdictional team that interacted with, 100 plus 8 other departments. Is there anyone affiliated with any of those groups that you kind of look to and you're like, that's kind of the guy who I want to be like? Or, whether it was formal or informal, whether the guy knew it or not, but you're like, I really appreciate the way he does the job, or he or she does the job. And I'm going to pick up some of their traits. And that's really, I want to do the job that way.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, I mean, I'd hate to start naming people because I don't want to forget anybody. But yeah, I mean, everywhere that I ever worked at or wherever I met people, even just happened to be there, on a case or like watching somebody handle something, right? I mean, yeah, I take away something every day from somebody, right? I mean, I worked with some of the most experienced officers in the Ruse burglary type of field, and then even with NIPUS, just good people in general, that you just want to be like. And then, you know what? Listen, there's guys that you also look at and say, I don't want to be like him at all. And that's the reason I'm going to do it this way.
So what do you consider to be the high points of your career?
You know what? Making it out alive, making it out with a good attitude. You see so many people go through so much, and people take that home. I'm happy that my family, they're all there for me still. You hear cops that lose that family, they lose that wife. Sometimes they pick up another wife or a third wife. I've been married to the same woman for 27 years. I'm happy that I walked away with a good attitude, a healthy life, something that you can't buy. And along the way, I made some great friends that, I got two brothers. And the way I feel about some of those people, if my brothers needed blood the same day as that person that I worked with, I'd say divide it in half. That's the type of bond you have with these guys. So
you bring up your family a little bit, and can you talk about the impact that you think the job had on your family?
they were really supportive. Like when I think about it, when I started dating my wife, it was funny because, we're dating. She was working like the afternoon shift, and I'd tell her, and I was working afternoons, and I'd be like, all right, yeah, I'll come, come by at like, at 11 o'clock, we'll go out and do something and stuff like that. And, because I felt like, she just needed to know what being married to a cop was going to be like. So, I'd tell her, she'd go home and get ready, we're going to go out and stuff like that. And then I'd go home and tell her I got held over for work, and I was at home. I wasn't lying, you know what I mean? But just to see, if that's the person for you, right? Because, some relationships get hurt because they don't understand that job, that things come up. You have to work overtime. You have to go in early. You got to work on a holiday. You got to, and if she could put up with it while I'm dating, man, you found the person that you need.
What about the kids?
Same. Kids were, I was fortunate too, where my wife was able to stay home. I worked a lot of overtime and I worked a lot of side gigs along the way to kind of give that opportunity for us to have a good life. So, my wife got to stay home with the kids and, be a good mom to them. And then I'd come home and, everything was there for us, you know what I mean? So they had that, and I think also too, with kids, it's like, they remember the big things in their life. Like a cool vacation or something like that. They're not going to remember that you weren't home on a random Wednesday because, you were working overtime or something like that. But they're going to remember that 2-week vacation that we went somewhere, to California, to Arizona, or wherever we went, you know what I mean? Or even just like taking a trip to the zoo the long way, where they think that, it took them for, it took a really long time to get there, but, those type of things. So you kind of give back that way. The kids remember those type of things. And I thought I did a good job with that and with them. So. Yeah.
What are your best memories about the job?
Um, the people you work with, the people you served, and then ultimately, those guys that you worked with. Um, a long time ago, I remember somebody saying, it's not the circus that you miss in this, it's the clowns that you miss. And, I haven't been gone that long, but I do miss my clowns for sure.
Is there, looking back, and now that you're gone, when you look back and that last day that you're here is probably a very impactful day for you, but when you look back, is there anything that you tell yourself, boy, I wish I would have done that differently?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things, I think at the end, as my career, kind of came to an end, and it was on my terms, right? I mean, nobody told me, hey, you got to retire, you got to get out of here. There's some type of something going on, and, you got to leave. The one thing I do wish, I think I would have, maybe that time that I was in investigations, that I would have maybe taken that sergeant's test a little more serious. And, maybe knowing that, hey, this is not going to last you forever, kind of, you know, get out there, make sure you make that sergeant. I feel that I would have been happier doing that then, kind of, because at some point, you're riding this trail, you're going, your career's slightly going up and up, up. And all of a sudden it's like you get to a point where you're kind of plateaued, where I'm like, I'm good here. I want to finish as a detective and retire. And all of a sudden you're back on the road again. And you did nothing wrong. And, it's just like, well, shit, I should have, maybe tested for sergeant sooner, things like that. So I'm glad I took that test that, just before I retired, well, a couple years before I retired. But I remember when the results came out, I wasn't happy, just because of, where I fell. And so I had two people, with a lot less time on than me get promoted, and, qualified, good people. I can't, I won't say anything, negative about that. It's just, hey, that's the way the test felt. And I remember talking to my dad, in my 24th year, like the end of my 24th year, going to my 25th year, and I had just a lot of stuff going on. And on the personal side, a lot of job opportunities out there. People asking me, hey, you want to come work for us? You could do this, you could do that. So I was talking to my dad, and I said, you know what, Dad, I think I'm going to retire in January. He goes, why are you going to do that? I said, because you're too young. I said, well, I turned 50 this year, and, just get out of the job. And he goes, well, why don't you wait? What about sergeant? You took that test, see what happens. I said, well, two people ahead of me already got promoted, and just, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? They're younger officers, and you know what? All of a sudden, one thing led to another, some personal, things with those people in front of me. They left the job, and all of a sudden, like, I'm on deck, it's like, hey, you're going to get this job. So I just wish that I would have done those things earlier in my life. And, because at the end there, I ran out of gas.
What assignment did you enjoy the most?
Oh, man. I would have to say being in investigations, being on NIPUS, and being on that Ruse burglary task force. Those are by far, so many good memories come from that. Did so much good there. But at the end, I really enjoyed being a sergeant. I had a great shift, young sponges, they called me Uncle Sarge. We had fun, and we did good. We did fine there, and I'm going to miss those guys. They were so just young guys, you know what I mean? That just reminded me a lot of myself, wanted to, just go out there and do stuff and make your sergeant crazy, you know what I mean? And just like, no, stop, please, not today, guys. But yeah, so no, that's all around good career, really good career.
So you touched on it very briefly. I believe the term you used, you ran out of gas, but so there's this decision to retire, and how does that come about, and how do you decide, okay, it's time?
Yeah. I, having so many police friends over the years, and you talk to them, and And I just asked, over the years, I've asked, those guys, like, hey, what makes you want to do it today versus yesterday, or what, tomorrow? And everybody told me you just know. And it's exactly what it was. I was waking up one morning and I just kind of sat there and I said, man, I got so many other things outside of the police department to do right now. It's time to move on. So, and that was it. It was, ran out of gas I need to start the new chapter. I had so much to do and I didn't want to miss those opportunities to grow what I was working on.
So normally what I ask people is that they missed the job, but you've only been retired a week and a half. So I'm going to ask you this question. Is there anything that you've been waiting to do that now that you're retired, you're excited to have the opportunity to do?
Yeah. You know what? Part of, a lot of it is starting this new venture with a new business. Security agency, it's been a work in the process, probably, I want to say, for over 20 years, and it was just have the time to sit down and start plugging away at that and building the clients and building a staff around me and getting more professionals to work with us to take it to the next level. So, yeah, that's where I want to be at. We're doing well. So, and now without the police department job holding me back, and it's time to move forward.
So I think that answers the question of what you're doing now. So you're running a security company?
Yeah, we're running. It's a smaller agency. We do a lot of high-end retail work. Security guards. We do, all those side gigs that cops do. That we do that too. We've teamed up with another company out of New Jersey, and we provide staffing and security for some very large big pharma companies, and we get to travel far and near. It's taken me to a lot of places around the world and around the country that I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to do. So we're working on that. We have some clients, high net worth clients, that we do. They're driving for them, and just watching over them when they're out there. So
last words of advice for maybe somebody that's considering becoming a police officer, maybe someone that's halfway through their career and they're maybe a little bit frustrated, and then maybe somebody that's pondering that question whether or not it's time for them to retire.
Yeah. You know what? Police work has got its ups and downs. Someday someday you're the flavor of the month, maybe the flavor of the year or years. And then other days, it's just like, man, you can't do anything right, and everybody's, it feels like everybody's just, taking a dump on you. So hang in there, be positive. Find that one person on that police department that you can vent to, that you can trust, and they're not going to go over there and say, oh, did you hear what Vel said, about you or something like that. If you get that vent out, it makes it a lot easier, because you're not going to accidentally say it to somebody out loud, and, a few years ago, I remember, somebody saying something about, there's, if you had $86,200 or something like that in your bank account and $10 was missing, how much would that bother you? And what would you do? And it's like, hey, you wouldn't miss the $10. And it's like, well, there's 86,000 seconds in a day. Why are we going to worry about the 10 seconds that somebody upsets you about something? Let it slide off, move on, and move away. That's it. Try to stay positive. Like one of my friends used to say, be a fountain, not a drain.
That's actually a good saying.
Yes, it is.
What about the guy that's looking to retire?
Hey, you know what? Have something going on. If you're okay sitting at home, that's fine. But have a purpose. Have a purpose in life to move out there and do something, you can do so much more as a retired police officer. There's so much that you can do, I mean, think about it, right? As a police officer, it's our business to get into people's businesses and talk to people, right? And you could be, get into sales, if security's not your thing. I mean, it seems like everybody always kind of gravitates towards that investigation or security, because that's what we've been doing for the last 25, 30 years of your life, there's so much more to do out there. And I mean, I gravitated towards the security stuff because it's something I've been doing for so many years, and it worked out pretty good for me. I know other people that, they've gone in other directions and training and even sales, and they do well, so just have a plan walking out the door, but don't leave ever out of spite. Make sure you got something going on.
Bill, I want to thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Jason. It's a pleasure. Thank you for everything you've done for me, too.
Oakbrook 555.
Three South units hold all non-emergency traffic for an important announcement. The men and women of the Oakbrook Police Department would like to thank Sergeant Torlo for his 27 years of dedicated service. Sergeant Torlo began his career on January 5th, 1998, the late 1900s, as a patrol officer, and was promoted to sergeant in 2023. Throughout his career, he served as an FTO, assistant shift commander, detective, sergeant, a member of Fiat Major Crimes, an inspector of the Illinois State Police Ruse Burglary Task Force, and an IPIS Mobile Field Force member. Sergeant Torlo has received numerous recognitions, including the Chief's Recognition Award, Department Commendations, and awards for outstanding police work from the Illinois State Police, Illinois Attorney General, DuPage County State's Attorney, Cook County State's Attorney, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists for his DUI enforcement efforts and investigative work. His dedication, attention to detail, and professionalism have greatly shaped the Oakbrook Police Department. Your leadership and smile will be deeply missed. Thank you for being a friend and mentor to many within the department. And please join us in congratulating Sergeant Torlo on his final 1042. Oakbrook 555, you're now 1042. Three South units hold all non-emergency traffic for an important announcement. The men and women of the Oakbrook Police Department would like to thank Sergeant Torlo for his 27 years of dedicated service. Sergeant Torlo began his career on January 5th, 1998, the late 1900s, as a patrol officer, and was promoted to sergeant in 2023. Throughout his career, he served as an FTO, assistant shift commander, detective, sergeant, a member of Fiat Major Crimes, an inspector of the Illinois State Police Ruse Burglary Task Force, and an IPIS Mobile Field Force member. Sergeant Torlo has received numerous recognitions, including the Chief's Recognition Award, Department Commendations, and awards for outstanding police work from the Illinois State Police, Illinois Attorney General, DuPage County State's Attorney, Cook County State's Attorney, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists for his DUI enforcement efforts and investigative work. His dedication, attention to detail, and professionalism have greatly shaped the Oakbrook Police Department. Your leadership and smile will be deeply missed. Thank you for being a friend and mentor to many within the department. And please join us in congratulating Sergeant Torlo on his final 1042. Oakbrook 555, you're now 1042.
Officers, let's head home. Reset home. Order home. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming, and I hope to see you guys over at La Briola tonight. Okay, please come, and we can celebrate some more. All right, let's go. All right.